Hi, everyone. Thank you for those who have joined so far. We're just going to wait a couple minutes to make sure everyone is able to get on. And for those who are just joining now, we're just holding on a couple more minutes for others to join. Thanks so much. Okay, great. So I'm sure we may still have a few more people joining, but just thought we'd go ahead and start to kick things off with some housekeeping notes and introductions. So first of all, just thank you all for joining us for the Preparing for AI in Healthcare 5 Steps to Ready Your Organization webinar hosted by Technology Rivers. And today we're planning on exploring the critical steps healthcare organizations should take to integrate AI effectively, with insights from our panel of thought leaders who will share their experiences and best practices for AI readiness. So just to kick things off, I'd like to first introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Benefro, and I will be moderating the discussion today. And just wanted to, before we dive into the discussion, allow our panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves and provide a little background on, themselves and their experience in AI and healthcare. So let's go ahead and start with Imran.
Hi, Imran Chaudhry. I've been with Progress for about 10 years or so, a decade. Prior to that, ran a bunch of startups. The last startup I did was teaching computers medicine. So looking at full private patient records and figuring out what's really wrong with patients. And in the Progress world, I focus on generative AI and healthcare and life sciences.
Great. Next, we have Gorkum.
Hi, Gorkum Sevinci. I'm the founder and CEO of Qualytics. Qualytics is in the data quality space. Of course, we're going to talk about that quite a bit today. I spent a decade in the healthcare space at Johns Hopkins Medicine, running the Technology Innovation Center, founded and scaled it, and also did a couple of startups in the healthcare space as well, one in radiology, one in medication adherence. I am still tangential to healthcare. I'm still an adjunct professor at Johns Hopkins, as well as running a startup now that is selling not only to healthcare, but to other verticals as well. So excited to participate in this panel.
Great. And finally, Gazimfer.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gazimfer Mansour. I'm the CEO of Technology Rivers. We're a software development company with a primary focus on healthcare and AI. Over the last 9 years, we have built close to 50 healthcare applications, and out of those, about 50% are HIPAA compliant. Work with different types of organizations, including startups, quality health organizations, We dabbled into AI a couple of years ago, and now majority of our focus is building AI products for our customers.
Great. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
panelists, for those introductions. And we will be hosting a live Q&A with our panelists at the end of the webinar. So please feel free to submit those questions through the Zoom Q&A function. And also, we are recording the webinar, and we'll be sure to pass that information along to you following the event. So without further ado, I'd love to dive into today's discussion on the essential steps for AI readiness in healthcare. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so you can see our panelists. And this first question here, it goes to Gazemfer. So before implementing AI, what are the key components for a robust infrastructure that healthcare organizations really need to evaluate?
Sorry, I didn't realize I'm on mute. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, before adapting AI, obviously the organization should look at many different aspects about the infrastructure. So there are a few that I will highlight, and then I'll let others if they want to chime in on any of those. So data infrastructure, data is key. So having the right data is definitely key in the AI. Without the right data, you will have different kind of problem. Looking at the computing power, because the AI is heavy resource intensive, you have to look at your current capabilities as well. Does your team or infrastructure have the capabilities? So, and then obviously that will impact the budget and everything. You have to invest in the data management, the part that I talked earlier. Having the right data is key, and investing in that. And then data quality, again, it's all relevant, but I mean, again, the bigger emphasis on the data. Cybersecurity, that's another part. You have to make sure those are AI readiness. And then the biggest part that we deal with is the compliance part. We work a lot with HIPAA, and that is one of the common questions that comes. So you have to make sure your data, if it's HIPAA compliant, what kind of I would say actions you would need to do to make sure your AI is not compromising the quality of the data. And then the last is probably the scalability part, looking at building the scalable application, and so your AI infrastructure should be able to handle that.
Yep, absolutely. And Imran, can you discuss the importance of information architecture in the context of AI and maybe share some best practices?
Sure. I have a very pithy proverb now. Great AI requires great IA. And I'm sticking with it for now. But when we talk about information architecture, we I think need to, when you have data within an organization, you have a lot of different applications, and those applications each have their own sort of specific databases. And not only that, but like generally speaking, when I was bringing in and importing content from patient record systems, you'd find about 10% of them had some kind of an error in it. Right. So taking your raw data coming in and then being able to run it through a set of things to get to your fit for a purpose, right quality set of data to use is part of information architecture. The other thing that I would say is when you look at taking raw data and getting to sort of usable data, you want to think about products that can give you configuration-driven quality enhancements versus actually having to code. I think getting away, you still have to do a decent amount of coding depending on your use case and the specific business rules that have to be applied. But now there's a lot of ways to do stuff in configuration. And so that's one thing I would think about. Another thing is when you think about these information, you want to sort of elevate the discussion between the technologists and the business users. So you should start thinking about business objects as opposed to information or data. You should say, hey, here's a patient, and this patient has these diseases, and he's being treated by this provider, right? So those are business objects that the business guy can understand, but also the technologists can understand. And so thinking in terms of business objects is also important. And then also thinking about all of the semantics and the ways people can refer to concepts in the information to generate what I would call knowledge from the information is also important. And in the healthcare space, a lot of these semantics are already available in third-party graphs and tools that are really easy to use. Things like ICD-9, ICD-10, CPT codes, HIPAA codes, drug data repositories, right? All of these have very, very useful concepts in them that can then be used in healthcare systems that make them appear and actually operate in a very smart manner.
Great. And Gorkum, I'd love to hear your perspective on why data quality is crucial for AI.
Yeah, and actually, Imran set that up perfectly, right? So when I think about AI, I'm thinking about if I feed my model pictures of three-legged dogs, what is my model going to tell me? Dogs should have three legs, right? Is that correct? No. So we need the real world context. We need good data so that we can actually derive previously unknown insights from our AI, right? That's the whole big promise of AI is the previously unknown insights. But we gotta do our get our house in order by ensuring that we have good quality data that we can trust. And that trust goes into a lot of things, because if we think about a data governance framework, we're thinking about the people, process, and technologies, right? And all of that distills down to a framework that you want to put into place. And to Imran's point, you have technical data quality, which is, hey, did my data pipelines run correctly? Is the data in the right format? Like, is it the same format dates? Is it the right format phone numbers? We still deal with that stuff, right? We're doing the really cool stuff with the AI, with AI and innovative insights. But on the other side, we're still dealing with format issues. So technical data quality is different than business data quality, with that business context of this patient is related to this order, right? And this patient is related to this result. And that order and result are related to each other. I shouldn't have a result without an order, right? That is a huge data quality concern. And I remember dealing with this in my past career, where we have orphan records, orphan results showing up. Where does this even go? Is there an order associated with it? Or an order that gets never completed? What happens when it's an inpatient versus an outpatient? That's different business context. So I love what Imran said with that business context that we can derive from other systems and that configuration, because enabling the business user to come into data quality is absolutely crucial for any of the other work that we're doing. Yes, it starts with analytics. Yes, it starts with some of the more BI work that we do, but AI is absolutely dependent on that same concern of data quality, in my humble view.
Yeah, I know you started to hit on this a little bit, but what would you say are the most common data quality challenges that healthcare organizations face, and how can they overcome those?
How much time do we have? There are I think Imran and I can probably nerd out about the common data quality issues for a good hour. Anywhere from, did I get the right data at the right time? Is it fit for purpose? Is it correct? According to who? According to what? According to when and why? There are many data quality challenges that we often face, anywhere from the simple things like, did I get the right formats of phone numbers, right format of an MRN, right? Do I have all my MRNs correctly? That is not an easy problem to solve, actually, unfortunately, because I remember at Hopkins at some point we were managing 280 clinical systems and ensuring that all of those are integrated and speaking the same language. And we're sending up HL7 messages like crazy in between them so that we can orchestrate, right? That is not an easy problem to solve. And then you get into more complex, a little bit more complex, right? For example, a patient should not be over 120 years old, typically. maybe 150, right? That's the ceiling that you set, or patient should not have a negative age. And then you start going into, a patient with this disease, for example, A1C levels for a diabetic patient is different than a non-diabetic patient. Having that context as an anchor is very important. So it's like, I think about data quality as like a black and white thing. It's not a black and white thing, is what I mean. It's a grayscale thing. We're always improving it, and we're getting more and more complex. Now, the things that organizations can do, throw automation at a framework, utilize framework so that you don't have to do the bulk of that technical work. That defer to systems. Our systems are smart enough to do the technical data quality work so that your team can focus on the business side. Imran, what do you think? I know I'm riling on, but you have a lot of experience here too.
Right. On the, I would say on the data quality side, the technical quality issues are pervasive, unfortunately, and the way to sort of the way to address those is in a technical sort of way is to allow let's just take patient records, right? For example, right? Patient John can be spelled John, Jon, Jonathan, and so on, right? And then you have the issue of where you might have twins that have the same date of birth, so you can't rely on sort of the date of birth as being unique sometimes, right? So the idea is that you should use all of the information at your fingertips to help differentiate and figure out what's different between patients. And you should also use multiple systems to help you correlate and figure out what's probabilistically what the patient is. And then sometimes, given enough facts about the patient, like their phone number, their zip code, the street address number, and things like that, in addition to all of the other things that you're using from a patient person perspective, you could start really honing in on, oh, the probability of this being two different people is like 0.001%. So then you automatically sort of think about putting those people together from a representation perspective, and then join your IDs together, that sort of thing, right? So there's a lot of ways of using all of the data at your disposal to help figure out what's real and what's not, and what's unique and what's not, and that sort of ability to explore your data in a wide variety of ways to get data quality up is a very good way of thinking about it.
And I agree with both of you. I think the rules around the data are critical. As Gorkum said, A1C level are different. Different ethnicity has different blood pressure level for different people, same gender. So with the right data, you can only have the right outcome. And I think on top of that, also the amount of data, that's also key. How big is your data set? You're not going to get the right outcome with a limited set of data. That's one of the challenges that we see.
That makes sense. This next question I'd pose to anybody on the panel that'd like to address it. So how important is workforce training for the successful implementation of AI? And I guess what strategies can organizations adopt in this space?
Where do we start? I think, look, you don't have to go hire a bunch of AI engineers these days to be able to utilize AI, right? That's the beauty of commoditizing of commoditization of LLMs. I don't have to go build my neural network, a convolutional neural network to analyze this data. I can actually feed it into a vendor system. What I need to be thinking about, if I was if I was at a healthcare organization right now, I would be thinking about how do I actually, I'm working with regulated data. I cannot just put it on a cloud and public cloud and be able to use all the things that I could use if I was a non-healthcare organization. So I need to think about the, VPCs. I need to think about my private network. I need to think about how do I bring those innovative technologies in. But here's what I think about a lot, and I think whoever figures this out is going to make billions of dollars. How do I accelerate the way to pilot those that work, right? A lot of organizations are spending more money on piloting an organization than the actual software spend that they're going to have. And it's because it's very, very disorganized. I don't have, most of the time, people don't have example data that they can feed into a vendor system in a cloud environment. So I can do a quick POC and I can see how that platform is going to work. I can see enough to make a decision to move forward with production. Now we're doing the reverse where we have to do POCs on-prem and we have to get them in there, and just it's so challenging. We're spending months going through security reviews and third-party penetration tests, etc., that a customer requires before we can do a proof of concept that our platform does what it's supposed to do. So it's a big investment that we have to do to trial things, and we gotta lower that, right? Whoever figures that out is gonna make a lot of money, but because like if I have Epic and I have 100 different systems in my organization, how am I going to simulate that in a test environment that shows me good enough production data that I can see good enough POCs? I don't have a solution for it. I just know that it's a humongous problem. And we face that problem too.
Yep. So
So
actually,
workforce training, like I think it impacts it in the sense of I'm not going to hire AI leaders, but I'm going to hire infrastructure people that can help organize, help maintain that infrastructure and use the software easily. I took a very long time to get to your answer.
no, it was great. And I want to actually stay on that topic of pilots and POCs and maybe direct this one at you, Imran. How can healthcare organizations effectively measure the success of their AI pilots and POCs?
Right. So I would say it's really easy to do pilots and POCs in that Gen AI systems especially are probabilistic in their answers. And so achieving 60% or 70% accuracy is really easy. What you need to think about is, and that's for POCs, right? When you go to the pilot, you need to have a pathway to help you get to 90, 95, 99% accuracy and repeatability. And so far, the most agile way I've seen in terms of best practices to get to that level of repeatability is to use semantics. It's to basically build out graphs that are very custom to your organization, that understand the very specific use case that you're trying to build out with your Gen AI apps. And so for people that are interested in regulated, reliable, repeatable, accurate, secure sort of environments, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say semantics is a requirement, and you have to start being able to understand the semantics in your information as part of your information architecture.
Mm-hmm. And Gazemfer, I know you started to touch on this in an earlier answer, but your organization provides AI development services. So what are the typical concerns and questions you encounter from organizations considering AI enablement in their products?
I think the bigger one that we hear is HIPAA compliance. People are concerned how the AI would handle my PHI data, because there are specific patient information, there are images, and some of the AI processing do need to even have those images. How do you make sure that AI is not going to? So that is usually the bigger question that we see pretty much in every question. But then other are more about the guidance, more on the workflows, on the use cases, like the practicality of AI. Is it really going to address my problem? Because nowadays AI is also, I shouldn't call it a hype, but it's more of it's the word out there. Everybody wants AI implementation. Many times we just have to push back on those, like, do you really need AI in this one? This is like something that could be solved or being already solved in a different way. But at the same time, it is critical. And then the second, obviously, every query comes with a budget part that they always like, how much is the cost of this? Security and data privacy, that's also another bigger concern. That's a critical data. And then somewhat similar to HIPAA is the control and transparency of the data. So again, as you're implementing those, but if your data, your HIPAA data is also being trained on the AI model, things get complicated.
Got it.
I think Gorkum, you may have some other insights. I know you have done a lot on this one, so feel free to share.
Yeah, I mean, PHI concerns are always big, and of course, traditionally we had done a lot with making sure that we're bringing everything in-house, whether that's onto on-prem versus our cloud. Now that our cloud thing, I'm going to underline it because that has taken off a lot more in the last few years, where I'm an organization, I have an Azure footprint. I have site-to-site VPN between my Azure footprint and my still on-prem clinical systems. So that's a bigger network, and now I can actually bring stuff into my cloud easier than bringing it on-prem. On-prem, like trying to bring stuff on-prem. We've done that with a number of organizations, healthcare and non-healthcare. I really don't want to be in that business personally, because it's just, you're trying to install things on technologies that are a little bit antiquated. Whereas being able to utilize my networks, my private cloud essentially becomes a big enabler. We have seen that happen a lot, and some organizations are starting to utilize SaaS systems too, and doing BAAs, but making sure that there is a lot more security and privacy around it, right? Mm-hmm. And we see this a lot in the financial sectors as well, right? And financial data is highly regulated. And if a piece of software is good enough for a bank, it should be good enough for healthcare as well, right? Highly transactional data, highly regulated, and being able to utilize cloud technologies, I think is it's absolutely crucial to be able to keep up with the innovations that are happening in the AI world. Otherwise, you're just going to start a process of evaluating a vendor. It's going to take a year to bring that vendor in, and it's going to be obsolete, right?
I think it's probably true of government as well, right? Another highly regulated space.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Gorka, can you discuss the role of advanced analytics in enhancing AI outcomes in healthcare?
Yeah, I think it's all related. Imran said something earlier that I really liked. It's about being fit for purpose, right? I think Imran said that earlier. And that's doing any advanced analytics is just our way of saying, this is my expectation of this data. This is my analysis of the data, right? I'm taking let's take a really simple approach. I have my EHR data. I have my Epic data. And I've pumped that into Snowflake. And now in Snowflake, I'm looking at all my orders data, orders and results, let's say. And I've connected my Power BI, I've connected my Tableau, I've sliced and diced the data, I've found some previously unknown insights. Great. I am actually making sure that my data is fit for purpose. My data is giving me some knowledge, some business context about what it's representing. That is, if we don't do that in our maturity model of analytics, we cannot skip to AI, right? Like it's like I can't go from having just my Epic and I connect that to some sort of a model, and all of a sudden magic is happening. There is an analytics maturity model where we have to actually implement a data warehouse and understand the data and catalog the data and actually start building with prescriptive, descriptive, predictive analytics before I can really start unlocking the power of AI so that I can ask the right questions to the data. What do you think, Imran?
So I totally agree with you, and in the sense of the AI part is really dependent on the data you feed it. And if you don't feed it good data, it's going to go off the rails, right? It just does. That's because that's what it got in, and that's what it's going to use to spit out stuff, right? So from that perspective, I think getting the data fit for use is just an absolute requirement before you even start thinking about what is my AI application going to do, right? The other thing that Gazanfer mentioned just previously was security is really, really important. And same with you, Gorkum. Um, and so my take on that is what people should be thinking about is locking down their the data at the data level as opposed to at the application level. And if you lock down the data at the data level, let's say you have, I'll give you a really real example. Let's say you are doing a study at Hopkins, right? On a certain disease with a certain kind of drug, like maybe an ophthalmology disease and a drug injection that's going in every 2 weeks. Well, the lead researcher in Hopkins needs to be able to see all the HIPAA compliant patient data, right? But the person who's running the overall study across all of the different sites should totally not see that HIPAA compliant individual data, because he should not be seeing what's happening at the individual level. And so now you have the same record that needs to have different accessibility out. And if you provide that different level of accessibility at the record level, then let's say those two people have Gen AI access to Gen AI. And when you know that the Johns Hopkins doctor is asking questions, you can provide it the HIPAA compliant information and allow him to individually ask questions about the individual. Whereas when the study coordinator is asking that question, you're going to go, oh, we're going to block all of this stuff and only give sort of results at an aggregate level, because that's the only thing that's allowed. And then because the Gen AI only gets the aggregate data, it will only respond and compute upon just the aggregates. And so security is maintained throughout your application when you lock down the content.
Got it.
And this is one of the key component of the HIPAA authentication authorization, who has access to what data. And that's what I was talking earlier with AI, it gets complicated sometimes when you have those generalized responses. Now, obviously, there are ways of handling that, but that's a separate topic for another time.
So I want to shift slightly. Imran, why are collaborations and partnerships essential for AI integration in healthcare, and what should organizations consider when selecting potential partners?
Right. So the AI industry in general is moving insanely fast. The amount of investments that are going in is just crazy. You have to build out what I would call agile partnerships, in the sense of you want to pick uh, uh, multiple things working together, right? You want to think about your Gen AI provider. You want to make sure that that Gen AI provider or set of providers is able to easily be switched in and out for different use cases, right? So that's a little bit of agility on your Gen AI provider part. You want to bring a Gen AI focused information architecture data platform that makes your data highly knowledge ready, or knowledge processing ready, shall I say, and yet still be completely independent of your Gen AI providers, so that you can switch out those providers as needed for different use cases, and yet still use the same data across those different use cases, right? So that's something to consider. You want to make sure you have a set of expertise that can help you with quality of your data and your governance of your data, And then you also want to have a set of experts that understand how to glue all of the stuff together. Your information architecture platform, providing services to glue that in with your Gen AI, to providing a user interface that matches the use case that you need, right? So all of those things have to come together to rapidly build out stuff. And really, that's why you need these agile partnerships, because there's a lot of moving parts that have to be put together when you're thinking about production level systems.
Great answer.
And to add to what Imran is saying, for all of those, you don't have to hire specific people, right? There are organizations out there that you can partner with, that you can get that expertise through. You can get expertise for data governance. You may not have to, you're behind already. Everybody's behind, right? Everybody in healthcare is already behind. I'll tell you that much, for sure. So you need to be thinking about what are the steps I need to take. You know, everybody's thinking about 2025 budget cycles right now. Think about how much faster you're going to go when you utilize external parties rather than going and hiring 3 data governance people in your organization. How long is it going to take to hire those versus partnering with a company that will get you accelerate? And you can, of course, always replace third parties like us with your internal teams. We're not against that. Of course, that's success, but it's all about going fast. You're already behind.
So I want to make sure we leave time for some Q&A from the audience. So let's switch over to that now. And I'm going to pull these up. It's like we have a question here. So who is doing this well? Johns Hopkins, someone else? I'm genuinely interested in the added value of AI in augmenting existing efforts to increase health and wellness. It's not directed at anyone in particular, so feel free to jump in.
I'll let others jump in, but I cannot name names. What I can say is there are a few organizations out there that have already made the necessary investments, and there's some of the bigger names that have made necessary investments, and we're talking many, many millions into their data infrastructure that enables the AI innovation. It's the data governance, it's the data security, it's the information architecture that enables all of that. As AI became more of a thing in the last 2 years, some of the organizations jumped into that. Chief data officers got budgets. It's all about the chief data officers getting budgets. Do the organizations have chief data officers in the first place? Chief AI officers in the first place that are actually dedicated to these concerns. So I can't name names, but what I will say is that this is there are some organizations out there. Maybe I can on an offline can discuss that. What do others think?
Yeah, I have I'd say a decent number of customers that have already gone into production. Again, but I can't name names, but also I'll just sort of give you use cases as examples. So a large claims processing company has figured out that they need to have object-oriented information architectures set up, and they're processing, I'd say, north of 0.5 petabyte of data in that space already. Another large drug developer, pharmaceutical company has been using information architecture to create what I would call a combination of Facebook and LinkedIn and Google as for their private research data to allow people to collaborate and find information about various chemicals very, very rapidly. A large, one of the big 4 accounting firms, again, no names, tested our platform against other options and realized that the semantic aspect was the secret sauce they needed. They have gone into production and they're saving roughly $2 million a week right now with about 6,000 users on the system. So there's big big ROIs to be had, and you can go into production with very large systems. But again, I'll stress reliability, repeatability, and accuracy are the keys to getting into production.
Great, thank you both. The next question is, are regulatory organizations like HIPAA going to require a standardized level of quality scoring? How is that going to impact use of AI?
Well, I'm not aware if they're going to require at this time anything. So until they come, we don't know how it's going to impact, but definitely it's long overdue. HIPAA regulations have not updated even since the inception of mobile. So things have changed with AI, definitely. So we do see that that's coming, but until we see it, we can't say anything.
I can't wait. I can't wait until there is standardization, not just in healthcare, but in other fields as well, about in other verticals as well, about what is a standardized level of quality scoring, right? It doesn't exist out there. There are no standards around data quality. There has to be. There has to be, and it's different for each vertical. There is not even agreement between data quality professionals about how you calculate freshness, how you calculate volumetrics. You will get 10 different opinions from 10 different people. And sometimes there is no one right answer. There are multiple right answers because it's all about the context of the data. But that being said, I think Gazanfer and Imran, I think you would agree that in healthcare, there have to be some standards about how you would quality score a certain field based on its expectations, right?
Yes, not just expectations, but expectations for a given use case, right? And sometimes 90% accurate is good enough if you're doing statistical analysis, but if you're trying to treat a particular patient, you need 100% accuracy for that same field, right? So use cases and use fitness is really important in the quality, in determining what is the quality for this field, for this use case.
Yeah, agreed.
The next question we received is, can the panelists describe what does an AI and Gen AI readiness lifecycle methodology look like? The key part of my question is in readiness, both in terms of technical readiness as well as governance and human aspect of the equation.
That I think as throughout this call we've been talking about it, and it boils down to, on the technical side, getting a good set of data platforms, making sure it's independent of your models, figuring out which models you want to use, figuring out, and then on the quality side, I think figuring out sort of the fit for purpose, fit for use requirements for your data for your particular application. Then on the human aspect side, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. One is which users are going to use the system, who are the stakeholders that are involved, who's going to finance it and say, yes, this is going to give us a good ROI for what we're trying to do. Who are the experts that have the current human knowledge that makes the system run really well, that we're trying to automate, right? So those are all sorts pieces of the puzzle. Gazanfer, maybe you can add more to this.
Yeah, I think you both have covered pretty much everything.
So I know we're coming up on time. I wanted to go ahead and share the contact information on the screen. I do know also that we have a few more questions, so the panelists can stay on a little bit longer to answer those, but in case you needed to drop now, I just wanted to make sure everyone had the contact information for our panelists in case you do want to follow up with them. The next question is, how does data quality impact patient outcomes and healthcare decision-making?
I think that's something, yeah.
It can be life and death. right? I mean, you can absolutely order the wrong prescriptions for a patient if you're looking at bad data. You can absolutely be looking at a wrong X-ray and give the wrong determination, give the wrong diagnosis to a patient. In healthcare, data quality is absolutely life and death. That's why a lot of EHRs do implement a lot of, transactional data quality in line, and people will still make mistakes because we also have a lot of systems integrated with each other, right? We have a PACS system and a LIMS system and an EHR, and then where did my results go? Did it arrive to the right patient at the right time so that that healthcare professional can make the right decision at the right time, right? So I would say it's absolutely crucial in healthcare to make the right decisions and right patient outcomes.
I have a real life story for a large county in California. We won't name counties, but in a past life of mine, and it's not just the quality of data, but it's also missing data or missing visibility across data silos. When we combined the EHR data with the mental health EHR data, that very night we called up the chief medical officer and said these 5 patients need to have your providers talk to them because they are on life-threatening drug interactions, right? That's, for me, that was worth all of the effort I was putting into that particular project.
Mm-hmm.
So very real.
And I think it doesn't just apply in healthcare, it applies everywhere. I learned long time ago, early part of my computer science, GIGO, everybody computer science, no, garbage in, garbage out. So if the data is not right, you can't expect the right outcome.
And Gorkum, your points about integration actually lead in well to this next question, which is, what role does data integration play in ensuring AI success, and how can organizations manage the complexity of integrating multiple data sources?
That's a good question. So this is why some of the large organizations that we often interact with have already started or have already invested in utilizing large EHRs that are already well integrated internally. Of course, I see that as I have my EHR, that's my aircraft carrier. I have a bunch of PT boats around it to make it work, right? An EHR is never going to replace a PACS system or a LIMS system, right? They're going to have modules, but a PACS is going to be separate for radiology purposes, for example. So we still have to pay a lot of attention to the integration between them. Integrations are getting updated. About 10 years ago, well, 14 years ago, I personally was participating in DICOM and HL7 standard committees with writing the new REST-based standards. And nowadays it's becoming commonplace. It's a very slow adoption cycle because changing those integrations is not an easy problem to solve, right? Because you make one mistake and all the mistakes all the impact that we've talked about happens. So I think this is just it's a question bigger than AI. I don't think it impacts AI directly, it impacts AI indirectly. AI is better when it has a more complete picture. And that complete picture should be in our transactional systems that gets exposed to the more AI-related systems.
Mm-hmm. How can organizations build strong collaborations to ensure the success of their AI initiatives?
I think Imran knows this better than I do.
I would say that collaboration is really we answered it mostly in that you have to be very agile. You have to pick your partners with specific expertise, both in the sort of data platforms, the data quality, the services services capabilities around being able to build Gen AI applications. So all those things matter, and sort of the partnerships have to get created in those particular ways.
Great. Well, thank you. I think we do need to go ahead and wrap things up, but really appreciate you all joining us today. Thank you so much to our panelists. For more information on today's discussion, please reach out using the contact information displayed here on your screen. And like I mentioned earlier, we will be sending out a recording of today's webinar. So please keep an eye on that, out for that in your inbox. And we look forward to having you join us for future webinars. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.